Hi, this is Anusha. Do you mind taking 10 seconds of your time to rate and review us on any platform that you're listening to? This will really help other people find our podcast and we would greatly appreciate it. We do really want to meet other people. We really want to include more people into this community. We want to meet people that are also transitioning in their 20s. So we would really appreciate you taking the time to do that. Thank you so much. And now let's get into the episode.
Wait, but we don't have to have it figured out.
Guess what he said?
That's what
No,
they
not
say.
again.
But sometimes it's like,
I know.
there's so much free will.
But how
okay,
does a
take it easy.
20-year-old
I know,
travel
life
so
is
much,
hard.
but then we have
It's
both
so hard, we have to
money.
figure
so many things out. Money, marriage. No, I don't understand my friends. Yeah, sometimes this is so confusing.
I love you.
Having like a session here right now.
Or maybe it's just conversations over coffee. I hate confronting people.
I would love a hot chocolate right now.
Do you want to start a podcast?
Let's do it.
Welcome back to 20s in Transition Podcast, everyone. We are your hosts, Anusha Khannan, and
Likita Gopinath.
in today's episode, we're going to do something different. We're going to spice things up. We are going to have quality time with Likita Gopinath. So if you guys have been wondering about what's next Likita's account, she does a lot of these solo traveling. She covers a lot of those topics. So I thought it would be interesting to ask her a few questions on that and learn, about solo traveling. First, let's start off with understanding, why did you want to do that in the first place? What made you want to do that? Walk us through it.
This is like a serious ass interview. This sounds like it. But
Yes. Bringing to you live from New York City, live. Go ahead. We're interviewing. We have Likita Gopinath here.
thank
ahead.
you. It sounds very important. But anyway, I think the whole idea of traveling solo came from, none of my friends agreed to a common date. So I think that's basically how people start solo traveling. They're like, you know what, fuck this, I'm going alone. I'm not waiting for anybody else. And you have these issues. Some people have budget problems. Some people cannot take off from work. And some people have a different idea of vacations, right? Some people want to have like a very tight itinerary. They want to get things done. They have like a long ass checklist. And some people just want to relax if they go to a place. They don't really care about covering things or like doing touristy stuff. So I'm interested in doing a mixture of both, relaxing, but at the same time seeing stuff, going around and doing things that are famous in that place. So I think it started off like that, mainly not getting my friends to agree on a common date, not agreeing on a budget. So that's how I started solo traveling. And I'm like, you know what, I'm done with this. I can't wait for other people to get on my plan. I'm running out of time. I feel like I'm always running out of time. And then obviously we won't get to be 24 or 25 again. And then I'm like, this is it. This is my chance. I have to do this. It's okay if I get to do this alone. And it's been life-changing, that decision. And that's how I started solo traveling.
So what was your first solo travel? How did that start? How did that feel? What was that experience like? Do you have pictures? Tell me you have pictures.
Of course I have pictures. It's all over my feed on Instagram. So I took that huge leap of traveling to another country. I don't know what gave me the guts to do that. Because I think as women in India, I feel more safer in another country. I know it sucks to be saying that. Because traveling alone in India, I really don't have the guts, or I don't feel very safe or confident. I mean, I've not done it before, but in general, going out at night alone, even in our city, I don't feel that safe. So I did not, the first thought was not India for me. And I went to Bali. My first solo trip was to Bali. It was a 12-day trip. And oh my God, it was the best trip ever. I'm not saying this. Everybody's heard so much about Bali. It's not overrated at all. It's as fun as the videos show it to be. And I've had the first day when I landed, I remember that night when I checked into my hotel, I almost had like an anxiety attack. I'm like, how did I pack my bags and fly all over to this country? And now I have to do things on my own? What was I even thinking? So that whole night I was like, oh my God, I'm alone all by myself in this new country. And that actually was my first international trip. I have never stepped outside India, and that was my first time. And doing it alone, I don't know. At that moment when I booked the tickets, I had that courage. But once I landed that night, I was like, oh my god, what did I just get myself into? But yeah, and the whole I had planned the whole trip out because it was my first solo trip. I had booked the hotels. I took a car. I rented a car with a driver, so that usually people recommend two-wheelers over there, but I couldn't watch the map and ride a two-wheeler at the same time. So I took a car and a driver. It was very, very comfortable. I did splurge a lot on this trip because I wanted to feel safe. I didn't want to stay in hostels or like Airbnbs alone, so I stayed in resorts and I felt really, really safe. And being alone the second day onwards, it was, oh my, I loved spending time with myself. It was so good. And I think I did ATV riding over there. I dived for the first time, and that changed my life. Honestly, going alone to a country for vacation is one thing, but diving for the first time is another whole different thing. And that's what introduced me to the world of diving. I did it in Gili Travangan, an island, a small island that's part of Bali. And oh my god, I think we have to do another episode, okay, for this, but I'm telling you, life changing. And I feel like the more time you spend with yourself, a lot of introspection happens, right? It's very quiet. Like I was sitting in my room, and then I was literally, there was silence for 3 hours, and I literally had to say hello for some noise because there was so much silence and it was overwhelming. But I think it was uncomfortable at first, being alone, in your own company, um, doing things alone. So you need to find things to do on your own, right? Like you need to find the location, you need to, Google things. When you step out, when the car wasn't there, I had to walk around, find places to eat, talk to people. It really pushed me out of my comfort zone because I'm sort of an introvert when it's a new place. Like I cannot reach out to a person or approach a person and start a conversation. But this forced me to do it because I have to. I had no other choice, and it gave me a confidence. Like now I can go and reach out to a person that I have no idea about, that I don't know. I can go and reach out to them and have a conversation with them. And I think that's the first place where I was forced to do it. And a person of another nationality, I think, gives you that kind of exposure, I feel like. And yeah, it's a whole other feeling. I think being alone in your company, traveling alone, finding things to do, finding the way to the place that you want to reach to, it's just figuring things out on your own and having fun because it's a vacation, whole big plus. And yeah, I would suggest everybody to travel once in their life. Living alone is a whole different thing, but traveling alone is fun. You know, it's like a vacation, and yeah, I would highly, highly recommend.
I think the next question I want to ask you is like, how did you feel after you came back home from your first solo trip? Because I think that's a very important topic that not a lot of people talk about. That feeling is different. I know that, and I want to know what you felt.
Oh, huge, huge withdrawal symptoms. I'm like, actually, I missed my flight, my return flight, because I did not have my SIM, right? So they had texted me saying that the flight was preponed by 8 hours. Preponed by 8 hours. And then I had set my mind saying, okay, my flight's it's at 7:30. I need to be there by 5 a.m. And then I'm leaving. So I get ready, go to the airport, and then I am checking the list, and then my flight's number is not on the list. And then I start panicking. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew I fucked up. And then I was like, okay, I mean, obviously it has to be here. It's at 7:30 a.m. and everything. And I go stand to check in my bags. I give my passport, and then the lady is like, ma'am, your flight has already departed. And then I'm like, what? Excuse me? And this was after 12 days, right? And then at that point, I was like, you know what? I think I'd like to go back to rasam rice and, poriyal. I'm done with it because, to be very honest, I did not like Balinese food. They add kind of like a peanut sauce and everything, so there's a hint of sweetness in all of their foods, and I'm a savory girl full on. And I love spicy food. I was done with the food, and then I was a little done with the place also. I'm like, okay, you know what? Being alone for 12 days is enough. Now I want to go back home. So I'm standing there, and this lady at the counter says, "Ma'am, your flight has been departed." And then I'm like, I think I froze for a minute, and then I'm like, excuse me, the flight's at 7:30 a.m. and it's only 5:15 now. What are you saying? She's like, "Ma'am, we had intimated you about this." And then I'm like, I'm checking my email, I'm checking my messages. I'm like, look, there are no messages, no emails from you stating that the flight, was preponed. And then she is like, and then it hit me, I had a local SIM, I did not have my SIM. And then I'm like, fuck. Okay. And then I stood there almost crying because I didn't know what to do. This was the first time I missed my flight, especially an international flight. It was a connecting flight on top of it. And then I told her that, listen, you have to do something for me. You have to arrange, another flight. Please do it because I'm alone here and this is my first time. And she was like, okay, ma'am, let me see what I can do. She made me wait for 2 hours in the airport. And then I was just like, oh my God, how do I tell my parents this? They're already there against me going alone. But this I did not tell them, until later. So I told them my flight got delayed. I didn't tell them I missed it and all because they'll start panicking.
Auntie, I know you're listening to this. Just
Oh, shit.
I know she's
Mama,
listening.
this is just a story. This is just a story. Don't believe.
No way.
Okay, and okay, now that I know she's listening to this. But anyway, it's been a year, so I don't care. And I was waiting for 2 hours, and then she comes back. She's like, okay, we put you on a flight tomorrow morning. And then I'm like, I don't have a place to stay. So do something about it. She's like, okay. And then she went back. She came back after another hour. She's saying, okay, we'll accommodate you in this hotel next to the airport. And then I was like, okay, thank you so much. And then I go there and then I spend another day in this country. And then I'm like, I was pushed to it. I'm like, okay, now I'm really done. Please, I want to go back home. And then I came back home. So in the beginning, I was like very happy to be home. I was like, okay, now I have people around me. It's my country, my city. And then I see, familiar faces. And then it felt good. But the second day onwards, I started missing, being alone and traveling and being underwater. It's very difficult. But I want to go back to that feeling of being alone for the first time, traveling to a new country. Oh, that feeling, I don't know, I cannot explain it. I want to feel that again. Obviously, I cannot, but it's just, I don't know, I cannot describe it in words. But that's how I felt after I came back.
What would you say are the pros and cons of traveling alone? Do you think there are any cons to it? I'm sure there are. I'm sure.
Oh, that's a really, really nice question. So there are cons, right? Especially as a woman, you might not feel safe. A lot of people don't recommend women to travel alone. And I think that has to change. And that is changing. I see a lot of women traveling alone to different countries, even in India. And I'm trying to build that courage to travel in India alone, but I haven't, got to it yet. But I think that would be one of the cons. It might not be safe, or you might not feel safe. You'd constantly have that anxiety, okay, it's 11 p.m. now I have to go back to my room. You cannot stay out late. That's how it's been, and that's always at the back of our minds. We're always on alert, no, saying, okay, you're always, looking out for danger. That's how we've grown up, and it's sad to say that, but that is the reality, and I really wish it would change. But on all those 12 days, I was on constant alert because it was my first time and new country. And then I was like, I had to keep it under control. I couldn't let myself loose. And I was very conscious about who I was talking to, what details I was letting out. So things like that. That's one of the biggest cons as a woman. And the second one is there's nobody to click your pictures. That's the biggest problem. Like I went to so many beautiful places, saw so many beautiful views, and I couldn't get a lot of pictures of myself. But my driver, oh my God, let me tell you this. The tourist guides in Bali, they are committed. You give them money. I mean, obviously you give them money in the end, but they are committed to clicking the best pictures. So every time I had my driver with me, which was not the whole time, but every time he was with me, he, oh my god, he went down on the ground in different angles. He's like, post like this, and I'm like, wait, I don't know to post like this. He's like, no, just put your hands like this, just stand like this, just sit down like this, just put your leg on top of the other leg. And I'm like, wow, this guy's a part-time photographer, full-time driver. But tourist guides in Bali are committed. And that's how I got those beautiful pictures. Whatever pictures you see on my Instagram from Bali with me in it, it's my tourist guide and my driver. They are committed. They put in that effort. But otherwise, when they're not around, I did not get my pictures clicked because I didn't have a tripod or whatever. At that time, I was not creating content. But yeah, that's one of the cons, not having people to click your pictures. And also, that's a part of another con that is in my mind, that you won't have a familiar face with you to have fun. So, like I said in the first point, you cannot let loose because you are alone and you need to have your own back. So when you have someone around you, they're there and you can let loose. Like you cannot be on alert at all times, right? You can let loose, and whether it can be partying or anything, you have to, if there's someone that, okay, we have another person here, a familiar face, it's okay, we can let loose, we can have fun. So yeah, those are some of the cons, according to me, when you're traveling alone. And the pros outweigh the cons, obviously. The things that you learn about yourself, your preferences. So when I went traveling alone, I learned my preferences. I liked comfort, I liked luxury, and then I realized that I like to splurge on these things more than anything else. So I did splurge a lot on this trip. I rented a car, I had a driver, I stayed in resorts, but I was fine with it. I did not regret it because it's the best decision ever. So I realized that, okay, I like this kind of travel. I cannot do hostels a lot, So I realized my preferences. I was pushed to come out of my comfort zone, speak to new people, learn about them, talk to them. How did they come into, especially when I was diving, I was introduced to a couple of people from China and someone from Taiwan also. Yeah, so I spoke to them and I understood where they were coming from, what their culture is like, how they were introduced to diving, things like that. It was very, very, the exposure was on another level. And then you understand what's important to them. For us, in India, it's like you graduate, you do your engineering, and then you go into a job, and then you work for the rest of your life. But for them, oh yeah, you get married, have kids. You should have kids by 30, do this by 35, do this by 40. We have that kind of a fixed timeline. But for them, it's the complete opposite. Someone who's dedicated the entire life to traveling I have met like a 50-year-old man. He's single and he's so content. Like he's dived in like, I think 20, 30 countries. And then I'm like, oh my God, I want to be him. He told me how his experiences were and how he struggled so much in his 20s. And he worked odd jobs, saved up, traveled countries, did diving. And then I was like, oh my God, very inspiring. You never know whom you're going to meet, right? Just meeting different people gives you a lot of different perspectives. So when I came back, a huge existential crisis. I'm like, what am I doing with my life? What is this engineering degree for? What am I working for? What is this? What is my purpose? Like, this is not going to be my life. It's never going to be my life. I don't want this to. And yeah, it gave me a lot of perspective. I don't know if it did good or bad, but it did give me a lot of perspective and, made me ask questions. So, huge, huge plus. Traveling alone, knowing your preferences, introspecting, thinking about turning points in your life, thinking of why you did what you did. And yeah, just being in a new country alone gives you that space, gives you that exposure to go over all of these things, and huge, huge learning experience.
My next question was supposed to be like, would you recommend this to someone? But I already know your answer to that, so I don't even think I'm going to ask you that question. But what would you
Yeah.
say, like, if someone wants to travel alone but they're scared of making these decisions, let's say they're even talking to their parents, right? Because not, especially for Indian kids, we're not very much like, I remember how I felt when I told my mom I'm going to move to another country, like India is here, I'm going there. I understand like how that would feel as a child, as a kid, as a teenager. How did you like? What would you say? How would you recommend that they talk to their parents, or how can they make these kind of decisions?
So, if you have parents that are patient and they listen to your point of view, I think you can sit them down and tell them, how this can help you out. Like, I know most parents want the best for us, right? Every parent wants the best for us. So, when you tell them it's going to change your life or give you so many other perspectives in life and learn a lot of things by doing things alone, by traveling alone, I think they would allow. But for parents that don't have the patience, to listen to why you want to travel, it's very normal in Indian middle class households to say, why do you need to travel now? Save up. You can spend it on
No, no,
other
no.
things.
Get married and go with your husband. That is a very famous dialogue.
We should print it on a t-shirt and wear it. No, these are all very famous quotes. Why did you get married and go for your
Much coming
honeymoon?
soon.
I really don't understand that either. Like, I think I understand the whole concept of them not, especially as girls, they don't want us traveling alone for the obvious reasons you mentioned. But I also think it's like that is such a great experience, right? Like, it doesn't have to be international. You can still like go to, like, if you're from Chennai, go to
Yeah.
Pondicherry, go to Coimbatore, go to Bangalore. Like, that's it's fine. Like, just having that experience is different, and I think that a lot of people do want to do that, especially because of Instagram and how that's like promoting all of these things. I know a lot of people that would want to do that, but they don't know how to start. So I think, this podcast is really helping them figure out and understand also like how is that going to transform your life in terms of understanding yourself and also seeing other people. Yeah, that is all I had to ask you. If you do, you want to like talk about something that I didn't ask you because that was just like questions that I had.
Yeah, so I wanted to continue about what if your parents are not understanding or like,
Sorry, sorry.
no
Continue.
problem. Yeah. So my parents, they did not have the confidence, nor did they even hear me out. They're like, no, you stay back. Why do you have to do this? It's unnecessary. Save it up and use it on something else. And then people who know me, I am a rebel at home. Like I fight with my parents a lot. And I mean, it's not something to be proud of, but I think I'm just forced to become a rebel. Like, I mean, that's how I get shit done, get what I want. So I think the first trip, the solo trip, has to be, if especially for us with parents like us, um, it has to be like a rebel decision saying that, you know what, I'm going, I don't care what you say. So once you go and come back, and they know that you're safe, they know that, oh my god, you did so many things on your own, you went to a whole ass new country, did things on your own, and you were safe the whole time. And I kept updating my parents, like I kept calling them once in the morning and once in the night, and I kept reassuring them, listen, I'm safe, I'm fine, don't worry about me, I did this today, these are my plans tomorrow, things like that, always keeping them updated. So when I came back, they had that confidence in me saying that, okay, this girl can go out alone, she can travel alone, she has the capability to manage things in a new country. So I think that first trip has to be like a forced, like, take it with a pinch of salt to my parents. And then the second one is a lot easier because they know that you've already done it and you're going to be safe. You've done this before. You can make smart decisions. So yeah, the second and the third trip were like fine. My parents were like, obviously, initially they said, no, don't do this. Why do you want to go again? How much will you travel? And then I'm like, listen, I've done this before. I'm capable of being safe and I like this. So yeah, the first one has to be the hard one and force it on your parents. I think that would be my advice. And the second one onwards, they just have proof saying that, okay, she can do this. Yeah.
Well, kids, listen to Likita.
I don't know if your parents would agree with me.
No, I don't
But
think they will. I don't think they will. They'll just be like, oh, what does this girl know? Is she going to come and save you? That is going to be the dialogue. I just know it.
bad
That's what
example,
my mom
but
would ask
that's
me.
that's what we
I
have
mean,
to
yeah,
do. I mean,
if that's what they want to do, then You have to fight for it. It's sad that we have to fight for it, but we have to. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to talk about? Should we end this episode?
Yeah, I think we should end this, and maybe probably if people want to know more, we could create another episode on this. But otherwise, I think I'm good.
Yeah. It is coming out, guys. Like, we have more to cover. Like, how did she travel? So many more things to cover in this topic. So if you have any questions, let us know in the Q&A box. That Q&A box is going to be open to any questions related to Likita's travels and traveling alone and all of those things. But that's all for today's episode.
Thank you so much for listening. We're so grateful.
Yeah, thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next episode with that. Bye.
Yeah, and rate and follow us. Bye.